Eisenhower is known to have said, "I have two kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent." Welcome to this week's Dragonfly Soup. I'm Linda Watson-Call, and I'm so glad you could join me today. Today's episode is called Regaining Focus. But before we start, I do have a favor to ask of you. If you get at least one idea from today's episode, please click like below. If today's episode really got you thinking and working on how you can reach your goals, then please share this episode with your friends. After all, what are friends for? Well, here we are, the first week of February. It's time for check-in and see how we're doing on our goals. Are we moving forward or standing still? And I don't want to hear that we're moving backwards. It's only been 4 weeks. Now, most of my friends know, because I talk about it so much, that one of my goals is to start a winery. This is not a one-year goal. When I set this goal, it was the fall of 2016. I thought we'd be up and running in about 2 years. Little did I know it would take almost the entire 2 years just to accomplish step 1, getting approval from our township. So here we are, February 2019, still not sure of the end date for our winery, but at least I know we're on step 2. Now, if I look at our SMART method of setting goals, I would have to say I was way off on the T, timely. I could say not my fault, but I was warned by a very knowledgeable person that anything that comes before our township will take a good 18 months before the review would be completed and hopefully approved. And I've lived here for over 20 years. I've seen this township in action before. So why was I surprised? Because, just like everyone else, I thought it wouldn't happen to me. I did my homework. I had all the plans laid out, but I didn't allow for others that would control the process. So I had to regroup and reevaluate. I have 3 more steps to go, and I really don't want to allow 18 months for each step. So as I go through the process for step 2, I'm looking to see if it's possible or even plausible to move through steps 3 and 4 simultaneously. Maybe. I can review the paperwork that I need to submit to each agency. I can make sure everything is in order. And then, maybe, as we proceed as expediently as possible, we'll get it done. So much for my long-term goal. Or maybe I should call it a lifetime goal. Well, I also have other short-term goals or one-year goals. One of my short-term goals is to write another book. I've already picked out the topic. It'll be another motivational, inspirational book. And I've chosen the subject matter. Well, let's say I have 3 possibilities in mind. I just need to decide which one to do. I've also set a goal of producing a course for Udemy, which is an online course website. I have 2 possible courses in mind. Yep. It's another selection process. Should I flip a coin or try to work on both of them? No, not a good idea. 2 courses and a book at the same time when I consider all my other responsibilities that I have? Does this sound familiar to you? Deciding which book to write or which course to produce isn't really the problem. I spent January coming up with the areas of interest to write a book and produce a course. Next is the research and choose a book and a course topic. The bigger problem is time management. How to fit it in with everything else that I need to do. And make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. Let me show you this window. Now, you may have seen this before when you took a time management course, Or if you took any business courses, you may have used it for a TOES or SWOT analysis. Before Franklin and Covey, this window or matrix was used by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. He called it a decision or delegation matrix. Eisenhower is known to have said, "I have two kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent." So let's look at each quadrant in this matrix and see how it relates to us. The matrix is labeled urgent and not urgent across the top, and important and not important along the sides. The first quadrant is urgent and important. Now, I like to think of this one as the firefighter quadrant. This is the high stress, gotta get it done, and now. It's the crisis in your life. Think of the vehicle that you drive. The check engine light comes on, panic sets in, and you discover that you have engine problems. Your mechanic explains that if you had waited any longer, your engine would have seized up and you'd have bigger issues. You can't drive it until they are repaired, but at least it was caught in time. Or was it? So this quadrant shouts, do it now. It's stress. Let's move over to the next quadrant. Not urgent, important. Don't think of not urgent as a reason to put it off, though. Do you like fighting fires? No. This is probably the most important quadrant of the four. This is your planning quadrant. This is where you make decisions and set priorities to prevent that crisis that we experienced in quadrant 1. This is where you would have scheduled and taken your vehicle in for regular oil changes and inspections. There is no excuse for not doing what you need to do because it's scheduled here in quadrant 2. Well, let's look at quadrant 3, urgent, not important. I call this the interruption quadrant. This could be the reason your vehicle didn't make it to the mechanic regularly. This quadrant represents the meeting that you needed to attend, and then it turned out that your coworker was going, and the two of you didn't need to be there. This is the pick up the child from basketball practice or drive one to play rehearsal. This is taking that trip across town to find something that you're going to need probably next week. These are the activities that interrupt your flow for the day. But what's a person to do? They have to get done. Now for quadrant 4, the time wasters. This is where all the trivia and sometimes not so trivia activities lurk. You get on the computer to check email, and 2 hours later, because you clicked that link in an email, you find yourself on more websites and you lose track of time. Or you sit down to watch the news, and before you know it, you've watched 2 game shows and you're halfway through a reality show. And sometimes the time waster is activity that we feel we need to do, but it takes away from our productivity time. Running errands comes to my mind. This list is ever so long. And sometimes we fall into time wasters almost every time we turn around. Now, I will never say don't take a break. We all need them. Just make sure that the break doesn't end up taking over the time that was allocated for other things, like our goals. It would be nice if the activities in this quadrant would be deleted, be gone. And I know for a fact that if we got rid of quadrant 4, started to delegate some of the tasks in quadrant 3, and focused on activities in quadrant 2, eventually quadrant 1 would disappear too, and we would feel that we finally got it all together. I know it can be done. I've done it. My biggest quadrant 1 activity centered on maintenance, mostly on the car. I can't tell you how many times I've had low tires, almost ran out of gas. Okay, actually ran out of gas and had car trouble that could have been avoided if I had done the proper maintenance when it should have been done. So I started making car appointments in advance with a good mechanic who would change the oil and then check the entire vehicle. I started getting gas when the indicator showed a quarter of the tank left, and I walked around my vehicle about once a week checking the tires. Now, except for real vehicle emergencies, like that blast of minus 40-degree temperature that drained the battery, I don't worry about my car. Let's get back to these quadrants. Here are some of the real issues that I see with them. Quadrant 4, I need a break, or I'm doing things that are wasting my time. As I said before, we can't go full steam ahead 24/7. Did I tell you about the time I almost fell asleep while I was teaching? That was a wake-up call for me. So take the time to rest and recharge, but also pace yourself. I look at things that seem to eat up my time and decide if I really need to do them or not. Take shopping. I don't like to do it. It takes a big chunk out of my day, but it has to be done. Could I plan all my shopping trips at one time and schedule it once a month, or no more than twice a month? Maybe I could delegate it, or use one of those delivery options that so many stores offer. Let's look at quadrant 3. This is the I feel so bad, and you fill in the blank. Yes, you may feel bad if you can't attend every meeting because you think it'll jeopardize your career. Okay, it could, but not getting that project done on time or up to company standards, that will jeopardize your career too. Project deadlines make their contribution to quadrant 1. So let's delegate. Determine if the entire office needs to go to that meeting. Looking at your kids, maybe a spouse, a grandparent, a neighbor, carpooling will take care of picking up the child. Think about other activities. Can that important item wait until it's more convenient for you to drive out? Or maybe you could get it online and have it delivered too. That's a bonus. I guarantee you will find more time by delegating or sometimes postponing activities that fall into this quadrant. Family is very important. I was a scout leader for all of my kids when they were growing up, but sometimes I just couldn't pick up my son from a meeting or take my daughter to her activity. So I found a good support system with other parents who were in the same situation. If you can't delegate the family activities or get a support system, then maybe you need to look at hiring someone to do the work. Quadrant 1 is a stress machine. Here is how I got rid of some of my stress in quadrant 1. I looked at everything that was causing me stress and tried to find a way that I could do it better by planning in quadrant 2. I'd look to see what I could do so that I could avoid the stress, and I would put it in my plan, like scheduling my vehicle's maintenance. And this takes us to quadrant 2. You know, they don't call this a planner for nothing. This is where you need to write down what happens in the future, your next oil change, or the deadline on your project, or maybe the garden that you're planning to put in spring. Now, work backwards to today on all the activities that you need to do, along with the dates on which they need to be done. This will give you an idea whether everything is doable or not. Activities that need to be done but can't fit into your schedule, those are the ones that need to be delegated or hire someone to do them. By taking the time to plan and delegating things that you really don't have to do, you will eliminate stress. You will continue to move forward and reach your goal. So let's decide what on our to-do list is important but not urgent, and which items are urgent but not important. This way we keep our focus. We keep moving forward toward our goals. And I will see you here next week, right on Dragonfly Soup. Here is to our transformation and our best year ever.